undergoing constant development. So I think that's a big differentiator between last year and this year. So again, I didn't attend the conference last year, but I know some of my colleagues were here. Again, I think I'd just like to reiterate the point that the technology is advancing so fast, so quickly. And again, I think what we've seen is that generally organizations have started to put the social mobile analytic and cloud platforms in place. And then it's almost starting to think about that next wave of innovation coming on top of that. You know, going back to the sensors in manufacturing, starting to look at where people are using robotics in their warehousing, starting to think around what people are doing around robotics in retail, augmented reality, virtual reality, starting to see much more around that sort of building on that platform and then really seeing how companies are going to go digital and what it's actually going to mean at the cutting edge. How they actually operate is fundamentally changing. So I think it's going to be very exciting to talk through some of those examples today.
Maybe just to supplement what I just said earlier, going digital is no longer an option for enterprises. Our last year's event was really a mind-shaping event, crystallizing the adoption by big business of technologies by which we could further be able to compete with one another. This year actually expands such digital inclusion to small and medium enterprises. When you hear of stories like Uber and Airbnb as a good example, in 2006 that company never existed. But today, with use of technology, Airbnb, without any brick and mortar assets to its name, Apple is one of the leading companies in the world in such a short a time. Such is the power of technology, and I think the objective of digital now is to mind shape enterprises that in the new B2B2C world, where the consumer, it's never been a better time to be consumer today, the battle for the hearts, minds, loyalties, and lifelong business from the new consumer is ever more imminent. The power of technology can we're actually destigmatizing and demystifying the powers of such technologies in terms of its usage, also in terms of its commercial and economic ramifications, such the digital inclusion encompasses the whole enterprise spectrum, whether large or small. And that truly, with the enabling power of digital through SPACs, leveraging on social, mobility, M2M, Internet of Things, big data analytics, the cloud, and security, that actually any enterprise, big or small, can chart its way into a sustainable future.
Maybe lastly, we keep on saying that at the end, all of this impressive technology should translate into solving real-life problems. So last year it was about what can be done. This year it's going to be how it can be done and how it can solve your real-life problems, especially those in business.
Thank you very much. More questions coming from our media guests. Feel free to raise your hands to ask your questions.
We need more of the
I think so too.
Good morning, po.
Good morning.
For Mr. Eric Alberto, sir, there are many factors that should be taken into consideration when it comes to growing a business. The question is, why promote digital advancement?
It's a good question. The legacy model for doing business is capital, people, infrastructure, assets, physical assets. However, the legacy models actually favored size, bigness, scale, right? That actually puts to disadvantage the emerging and small venture capitalists and the entrepreneurial spirits out there. Digital actually plays a very big role in leveling out that playing field, not only in reaching out and competing and getting the same tools of efficiency by which you could increase your revenues or manage your costs more effectively to compete with the bigger players that have legacy commercial scale, actually digital actually allows you to bridge markets. Actually breaks down geographies and allows every small player, whether small, to be able to participate in that global business community called e-commerce. That is the power of technology. So you have the tools. You have both the tools to be able to compete with larger players that have the scaling cost and structure, legacy-wise, but also now the power to actually leverage on social networks and expand your market horizons beyond the typical legacy confines and boundaries of old business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I add to that? Why go digital? From an enterprise point of view, I think the short answer is because it's there. If you don't use it, others will, and you're dead. Okay?
Sorry, let me add an additional comment. I think just probably say it stronger, it's go digital or die. If you don't do it, someone else will. Or rather, someone else is already doing it. I mean, when we spend a lot of time with companies talking around going digital, and one of the questions I ask typically is how many of you in the room think of yourself as disruptors? And typically you get about 10% of hands sort of go up. And then you ask the question, how many of you think of yourselves as going to be disrupted? And about 70 to 80% of hands go up. So again, that's with the traditional organizations, the ones that have been in business for the past 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years, whatever. And they're the ones that are having to fundamentally rethink how they actually operate, because there's this new wave of startups really developing. And again, if you think about being a startup now, you no longer need to go and invest in a massive data center, you no longer need to go and buy very expensive software. It's all available on a pay-per-use model. So again, we've totally democratized the way you can now actually operate a business. We're seeing examples in the automotive sector of companies where all they are is 300 designers. Everything else is outsourced. The manufacturing is outsourced. The retail arm, the dealer management is outsourced. Supply chain is outsourced. The administration is outsourced. So there's whole new ways of operating that are actually being developed. And this is causing the traditional companies, they're having to relook at the way they actually operate. So they're having to think about how they can actually transform themselves and go digital. Whereas you've got those new companies starting up that are born in this digital age and are actually embracing this new technology and really changing and shaping the way business is going to be done going forward from this point. So again, it's a very exciting time and it's a very frightening time, just depending on where you actually sit.
Happily from where they sit, Chris, if I may add, even in your own particular business sector, the press, media, you yourselves are being disrupted, and as you go through a thought process of how that's happening now, the way you reach out to the different markets, traditionalist baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Zs, millennials, etc., will be in different platforms than you would in your old legacy sets. And the way you raise your revenues through the traditional advertising means is also being disrupted. So, you know, the adoption of digital, as both Toy and Chris have said, it's pivot or perish.
Thank you very much, panelists. Any more questions coming from media guests?
Hi, my name is Kathy. I'm the editor for PSSD.ph. Last week or a few days ago, there was a rollout of a change in your logo, and this was accepted, or a lot of people reacted positively and negatively. Negatively more because of we still have the slowest internet in Southeast Asia. We are calling for digital now, and a lot of people have fantastic ideas. This is an awesome thing to do for those who has business, especially on digital. You know, we have bloggers, social media managers who rely fully on the internet, but with the challenges that we still face with slow internet, even now, we can't upload a single tweet because of the slow internet, and we're supposed to be in one of best hotels with the fastest internet. What is being done to address that? Because even with every single fantastic idea that we come up with today, right now, with our speakers who can share best practices, if our own internet speed is not up to par, and with more people using it every single day, and still very frustrating. Do we have any solutions that are going to be implemented and would actually come to reality, or would this still be a thing into the far distant future?
That's a very good question, but something that entails an answer that's probably 3 times longer than the question. But let me take a stab at it and put it in perspective. First, I share your concerns. We share your concerns in the industry, not only us, perhaps our competitors are actually aware of that. There are many challenges that beset the consumers having a broadband experience that they would want it to be, right? Having said that, let me put it in perspective. The Philippines being a preferred destination for outsourcing call centers, #1 in the world, and BPOs, is a testament to our having a robust technology infrastructure. For without so, apart from the people resources, the next biggest expense item and most critical item for outsourcing is really the connectivity network, and we have that. Right? Now, second, as far as the consumer experience is concerned, this has improved significantly from the first report. In fact, the first report has been challenged to be quite inaccurate. No? We're certainly not the best. We're certainly not the laggards in that space. Having said that, I think there are many articles along that line. Having said that, there's really is very, very much huge room for improvement. And what are we doing to address this? Improving the consumer experience for internet actually comes in many forms. But first, I'd like to touch on the challenges. For the consumer side, these challenges actually come in the form of the following. First, we are the second largest archipelago in the world after Indonesia, connecting the Philippines through fiber with diversity and redundancy would inordinately expose us to exponentially higher cost than a country that would have contiguous land. Number 2, Filipinos, because of our